Morning to all of you. So today we have to discuss about two things as per your syllabus. One is biological invasion or species invasion or invasion of species, and the second one is conservation of biodiversity, where we will be discussing on ex situ and in situ conservation. This is the one. These are the two things which we are going to discuss today. And first, let me start with this biological invasion or invasion of species. What exactly meant by this biological invasion? Biological invasion refers to some exotic species, the species which are not of our native from elsewhere come here and get colonized. About this, I have discussed with you the in the previous classes also, but again they have mentioned it as a separate uh, topic. So these are the species which are introduced other than their historic native range. To give two examples, if you remember, one is the Parthenium and another one is the Eupatorium, which are not the species of our country, but it has been brought from somewhere. Even this acacia, which is extensively grown here, it has been introduced from Australia. So these species are called as invasive species. So the species many times being transported across these barriers at an increasing rate because of the human movement and commerce through planes, ships, or human being, either intentionally or accidentally, they are being introduced to such a new area which is not their native range. This we call it as invasive species. Now you may ask how they get transported. I have told you in the last class, I think, basalt is the major cause of introduction. That is, they are being transported through the ship. This invasive species, here we are going to discuss about two important things. What are they and why should we care? What are the ecological concern, human, plant, animal health, and the economic concern of this invasive species? So now, invasive species, as I have told you, implies exotic and a threat to native species. Then only we call it as invasive species. For example, even the teak what we have is not an Indian plant. It has been explored somewhere else, but it is not causing any threat to the native species. So that's why we don't consider this as an invasive species. But whereas the Parthenium and Eupatorium, we consider that invasive because they are exotic and threat to our native species. Exotic species means from another part of the world, which is not the native. Anything which comes from other part of the world, we call it as exotic. For example, this if you take the cattle like Jersey, Holstein HF, these are all exotic species. They are not native species. That is the exotic species. Many times intentionally we have imported them to improve our cattle stock or for various reasons. But this introduced species implies introduction but not a threat. These are exotic species, they are introduced species also. But invasive species are dangerous because they create threat to our native species. Even we have alien species, introduction to a particular ecosystem. If a particular exotic plant or animal or insect has been introduced into a particular ecosystem, then we call it as the alien species. Alien. So these are some of the classification. Now, What allows the invaders to invade? How they are able to invade and come here? Um, all species, even if you import them from there and plant it or leave it here, the animals they do not survive because each plant and animal requires certain habitat in which they can survive. But there are certain novel species which will survive and establish self-sustaining population in a new habitat, like acacia, or it can be Parthenium, Eupatorium. These are some novel species. Wherever you introduce them, they will survive and establish because they are more hardy species like Gambusia fish, mosquito fish. These are certain example because they can overcome all the hardship even in a new area, and they can survive because of their robustness or hard. They are hardy species, and a subset of these species may not only survive but become invasive. They will, if they survive, it's okay. But not only they survive, but they start invading and become invasive, dominating a new community. As a result, it causes the extinction of the natives. You know, wherever on the forest, on open place earlier in this part, there were grasses, so many different types of grasses and bushes. But because of the invasiveness of this eupatorium, you can see only eupatorium. Now all those native species have become extinct from the area where this Parthenium and eupatorium have colonized. So this is what we call, this is the very major problem because of the invasiveness. But now the question is what allows a species to become invasive? Broad environmental tolerance. All species cannot become invasive species. They should have highest level of adaptability to the nature. Broad environmental tolerance. Whatever may be the environmental fluctuation, they should be able to tolerate that. They have. So that's why I have told you they are more hardy species, more robust species, which can tolerate any kind of environmental hazards. And they have possessed life history trace. Their life history trace, they because of that they have the superior colonizing ability, and to acclimatize, not only colonizing, they acclimatize to a wide range of habitats. They get acclimatized to all ranges of habitat. That's the speciality of these uh, invaders. They come, survive, reproduce, and colonize because of their broad environmental tolerance that they have. Then the rate at which they adapt to the local condition is also marvelous. So they can get adapted to the local conditions, local selective pressure. They can withstand the local selective pressure and adapt to the local condition. So because of that makes this exotic species to make invaders to invade. They become invasive species. See, for example, this is a list of few invasive pests in India: woolly apple aphid, joe scale, diamondback moth, lantana bug, cotton cushion scale, pine woolly aphid, or there are some wasps like Eucalyptus gall wasp, uh, Erythrina gall wasp, papaya mealy bug. So, like that, these are in different years also have given, even 1918 and 19. Fall armyworm and neotropical whitefly. These are the two pests which have become invasive in India very recently. Only 2 years, last year's data even have. So that's the even another serious. This one, the coconut uh, eriophyid mite, which affects the coconut trees. These are all invasive pests. Like that, there are many. plants also. To give one example for coconut and palm pest, because you might have seen that the neotropical whitefly. Neotropical whitefly, uh, it's a or it is neotropical region, African and other things. And in 2019, it has been introduced to Karnataka also in India. And the what is the speciality of that one? This is widely distributed in the tropic and subtropics. As an example, I'm giving there are so many things, and colonizes on more than 110 plant species belonging to different family of Ericaceae, Rutaceae, Solanaceae, Saccharidaceae, and Lauraceae. It is now found in Africa, North and South America, Central America, Caribbean islands, Europe, and Oceania. Everywhere they are found. They are found, the pests are found to be colonizing on a coconut palm, coconut trees, Cocos nucifera, and even on the ornamental palms. You must have seen there are some bottle palms and other things, ornamental. In Mandya and Mysore district of Karnataka during February 2019, last year only. See, what they will do, they will start eating the greenery of the coconut leaves. Yeah, I have put a photograph also. They have become a very um, major pest for coconut. They start eating the greenery from the coconut leaves, and only that midrib is left. ನೀವು ಕಸಬರಿಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಲ್ಲ ಕಡ್ಡಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಉಳಿದ ಹಸರನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ತಿಂದು ಬಿಡ್ತದೆ. That's the this is an exotic and it has become invasive in Karnataka. Even if you go to South Kerala and all those things also now you can see. Fortunately, there is not much a problem in Uttara Kannada district, but even if you go to the neighboring district like South Kerala, somewhere you can see. And in many part of this coconut growing districts of Karnataka, you can see. So this is how, this is not the insect of our native. It has been introduced from elsewhere, geotropical region. This is an example. I will give you a few more example later. Okay, if it comes, colonizes here, what's wrong with that? Why should we care about it? That's the question. So, impact of this invasive species is directly on the biodiversity. Actually, its impact is seen in the changes that have been observed in the biodiversity. One is global changes it can show, and it can affect on the biodiversity. Even it can affect on the species trait. Already in any ecosystem, resources are limited. And if one more is introduced, they will start. Hello, ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಹಲೋ, ಕೇಳ್ತಾ
Yes,
ಇದೆಯಾ?
sir.
ಹಲೋ,
Yes,
ಕೇಳ್ತಾ
sir.
ಇದೆಯಾ? ಹೇಳಿ. ಹಾ,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
ಕಾಣ್ತಾನು ಇದೆ, ಕೇಳ್ತಾನು ಇದೆ. ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ
Yes,
ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಲ್ವಾ?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
ಓಕೆ, ಓಕೆ. So, there's there's a major issue nowadays. Even it will affect the species trade also, and trait also. It's just already in any ecosystem, the resources are limited. And once the resources are limited, if you introduce one more, then they have to fight with the already existing native population. But many of these exotic populations, as I have told you, they are very hardy species. They can make the changes and survive, make local adaptations. So, as a result of that, they will uh, outnumber the native and start controlling, find controlling in that. So, that's the major reason. So, their distribution also slowly increases. At what cost? At the cost of the native species. Then it may climate, it may bring the climate change also, ecosystem process, so many things it can bring direct and indirectly it can affect on the local, because I have told you all organisms are held in the what you call a food chain or a food web. So depending on this local species, so many other organisms are depending. Suppose if one local species get extinguished or become extinct, and in its place if the invasive species colonizes, then entire food chain or food web gets jeopardized. It affects the ecosystem, goods and service, human benefits, everything. See, for example, because of the growth of this eupatorium, cattle or other herbivores in the forest are not getting enough grass. Earlier, the grass used to grow, but wherever the grass used to grow, this eupatorium, Congress ಗಿಡ ಅಂತ ಇರ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, that has been colonized. And these herbivores which feed on the grass, they are deprived from their food. So this is how the impact of the invasive species on biodiversity takes place. So this has negative impacts on at various levels. The ecosystem level, if you see the distribution regime, that is where are the local species, they are affected and this gets distributed. Alters the water regime also. The any plant or animal which has been evolved in this region based on the hydrology, the water availability and use and resources management and all those things. But this new species, no, we don't know. It may start extracting more water. For example, there's a saying for this eucalyptus, Nilgiri, and the people complain that it is draining the water. So such things will happen, alteration of the water regime. Then it will also call geomorphological process. It may promote erosion, sedimentation, and even the soil chemistry get affected because of this invasive species. This is at the ecosystem level. But if you come to the community or population level, again the impact is totally different. Habitat structure itself may be uh, affected. Community composition. Community is the assemblage of a population. And in the population, some species have become extinct because of this invasive, and that has been colonized by the new species. So that affect the community composition. Then there will be more competition for the resources, the resource competition. I have told you already the resources are crunchy everywhere. But this may exhaust all the resources, and even the survived local species may not get enough resources. And it may reduce the population of the local species, eliminate the local species totally. So such things are also not uncommon. Even genetic impact, it may start crossing with some local species, especially in plants, and it can cause other genetic problems. Then, to give some example, one example, that is the cogon grass. This cogon grass, it has been grown in some part of the world. It's an invasive species. Uh, Suppose if the cogon grass is grown, that will increase the vegetation for fire. More, it is more fire catching. So which itself is vulnerable. So, uh, but one thing, even if the fire catches, it can regenerate quickly from the below ground rhizome, from its roots. But what happens when the forest, it favor the forest fire, and when there is a forest fire, many of the native species cannot survive, but this can survive. That's the problem result. uh, but this, of course, this is fire prone, this will catch the fire, but it has a below ground roots, immediately it comes out even after this one, but others cannot come. Even alteration, disturbance of the regime will be, once it was like this, it may become like this because of the catch of the forest fires. Hydrology, the water table. Uh, Another this thing, the salt cedar. It's a tree. It absorbs large quantities of water along the river banks in the arid region and excretes salt into the soil. See this, it takes large amount of water and excretes more salt into the soil. And what happens then is many other plants cannot grow. Only this salt cedar can grow and it becomes a monoculture. It becomes like a what you can call um, like a plantation. Only this salt cedar will be there. No other uh, plants can grow here. This is the major problem. This is another interesting problem. Even soil chemistry uh, gets affected because it secretes large amount of salt. It excretes large amount of salt. So as a result, this affects the soil chemistry also. So when the soil chemistry gets changed, so many microbial microfauna. Even if you take a fistful of soil, it contains millions of microbes or minute organisms, and all of them uh, will get eradicated because of the change in the soil chemistry. Another most popular example is the Chinese tallow tree, what is known as. Um, It's a good example for invasive species. It was this Chinese tallow tree. It was introduced to southeastern United States in 1700 from China. Uh, People consider it as a very beautifully looking tree, which you can see I have kept some of the photographs. And the uh, you can extract oil from the seeds, which is used in the soap industry. As a result, and in the most of the southern US, it got naturalized. But what has happened is, it's a tall tree, and it altered access to light for other plants. Because of this dense foliage, it didn't allow the light to penetrate. Because all plants require some amount of sunlight, but it stopped the sunlight entering into the ground. Leaves contain toxins. Even the leaves, even if you put the leaves, they contain some alkaloids and toxins which started killing the other plants. So if you plant few Chinese tallow tree, within few years, entire area will be full of this Chinese tall tree only, because other trees, native trees, will have been become extinct. Another example is the zebra mussel. It was introduced to the Great Lake by basalt water. Basalt water, I have told you, this is the water that is carried by the big ships. Uh, when you know that they cannot run the empty ships, it will topple. So that's why they will fill the ships with the water and sail. And when they come to the other um, ports where they have to fill the cargo, they will empty the water. Along with that water, the species of that region will get colonized here. Actually, it's a multi-billion dollar threat, because these zebra mussels will compete with our native mussel. So this is a very dangerous one. Here also, fortunately in Uttarakhand Coast there is no zebra mussel. If it comes here, probably all our mussels which we hear, what we call nilikallu and all those things, will get. Then another one is the comb jelly. Comb jellies are the cylindrids. In 1982, Black Sea introduction is accidentally by again basalt water, by ballast water. So this ballast water, this comb jelly was introduced, and once it was introduced to the Black Sea by ballast water, it caused dramatic drop in the fish population, because These comb jellies compete with the fishes for the same food resources. Then biological control was tried with another comb jelly, that is the Beroe and with some degree of success it has been achieved, but still then we have the problem of this comb jelly, which has been introduced into the Black Sea by ballast water. Even lampreys, these are the jaw fishes, and they have a sucker-like mouth. These lampreys parasite that attack on large fishes. Sometimes they enter into the Great Lakes of America from the Atlantic Ocean, and because of their sucker mouth, they causes injury to the other fishes. They start feeding on other fishes. When they attack other fishes, 1 in 7 fish survive by the attack. Otherwise, most of them, 6 fishes will die because it will start feeding on them. Another example is the fire ants. In southern United States, diversity of the insect species declined 40% after the invasion of exotic these fire ants. Fire ants are not the native of America. They have been introduced from Africa. Abundance, especially in the Texas, so it has become a nuisance for even the human beings. See how the red ants bite affect the human being also. Then another is the brown tree snake. Uh, it was introduced to a number of Pacific islands. As a result, what has happened? This brown tree snake is a voracious feeder. It feeds on the eggs of the insect and even the adult birds also. So, as a result, the bird population in the Pacific island got affected. As a result of this, something 11 forest species out of 11 forest species, uh, out of 11 forest species, we have one more. Sorry, 8 of them have been driven out. That's the problem with that. So this is uh, how the this alien species will affect us. So that's why it's a severe threat and problem for all of us. Uh, Not only uh, any America or anything, even in Uttara Kannada also, we are facing this alien species because of many ballast water, which has been because lot of ships come to Karwar port and Ankola ports, and they bring a lot of these things, and they create uh, such horror here also. That's the major problem that I wanted to tell you. So we can evade the reality. Right now, we can be silent. We need not worry about that. We can say that, but we cannot evade the consequence of evading the reality. So that's why this is the high time to uh, makes a make efforts to protect our biodiversity from this invasive species. So this is what I wanted to inform you about this invasive species, and then after this, we can move on to the other one, what is known as the conservation of biodiversity, which may take another 10-15 minutes for your information. Any doubt as far as the invasive species? If you have any question, you are free. You please feel free to ask me. If not, let me move with the conservation of biodiversity. You know what is biodiversity. So Biodiversity is the diversity of life. What is conservation? Conservation means protection. But nowadays, the term conservation is more misleading. Actually, now uh, many recent authors use the term management instead of conservation. Conservation means literal meaning of conservation is blind protection without utilization. All of you know that at present you cannot deprive the human being from the use of biodiversity because entire life of not only human beings, all living beings are depending on the biodiversity either for ecological, economical or aesthetic reasons, which we have already discussed. So now blind protection without utilization is not the answer for that. It should be a sustainable utilization, or in other words, we can say that it is the proper management of the uh, biodiversity. That should be the answer. It is this management means it should be like this: keeping the capital in the bank and using its interest only, so that the capital remains for our future. Suppose if you get 1 crore rupees, what you will get? Either keep it in the bank and use its interest only, so that that 1 crore remains for your future also. And now you are getting the fruits of that 1 crore in the form of interest. Suppose if you start using this 1 crore, probably within few years you will be left with no money. So that's why the management of the biodiversity should be like this. We cannot say no to the use of biodiversity. We have to use the biodiversity, but it should be a sustainable use. And at the same time, we have the responsibility of protecting them from being overexploited. So that's why in this, keeping this in mind, we should study about the conservation of this biodiversity. As I have told you, the term conservation itself is uh, misleading. So probably it must be the management. So in the conservation, there can be two types. One is ex situ conservation and another one is in situ conservation. What do you mean by this in situ and ex situ conservation? Let's try to understand that. In situ conservation or in situ strategy. So this aims, the in situ strategies aim to reduce the cost of extinction so that biodiversity is maintained. The idea of in situ conservation or ex situ conservation both is the same. The result is the same, methods may be different. What by these strategies we are reducing the cost of extinction and so that biodiversity is maintained. Uh, in situ, in the sense inside the restricted area, inside there are many things which have been done in as a strategy to conserve under this in situ strategies. This uh, like declaring certain areas as protected areas like national parks, national nature reserves, local nature reserves, where the biodiversity is given the strictest protection. They are managed, studied, repaired, everything we can do. But it becomes unpopular because uh, people do not have any access in that. Especially the tribals which are living with that, they are affected. They will be uh, shifted somewhere. All those things will be there. In situ conservation has certain benefits. It will create a healthy natural environment, balanced ecosystem, biologically diverse, biodiversity is maintained. But it will create problem as you read now every day in the newspaper about the Kasturi Rangan report about to declare this entire Western Ghat as a sensitive area, uh, it affects the local people. But certainly, it is good for the biodiversity. And even you can have sustainable use of natural resources where the resources are protected, they are guarded. So the sustainable use is made possible. This is in Rio Earth Summit also. This was one of the conditions when this act of biodiversity was accepted by the world community, and it reduces the cost of extinction. Certainly, this in situ conservation in national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, or bio reserves, nature reserves, all those things. The environmental future, more secure environmental future. The future of the environment will be certainly good compared to the present state. And here, the it's easy to conserve also because you are uh, studying
Studying
that.
that.
As a result, you are the area is protected, which provide all species, all resources which are required. Then species, either plants or animals, in that they are natural, well adapted to their habitat. Uh, they will feed and breed successfully. No special provisions are needed there because they are all the species which are already there. They are protected. Sometimes the human activities may be banned here. Reserve without consideration of the local people has caused conflicts for various reasons. Earlier, uh, the people were having the access to visit the forest and collect the resources. Now, once an area is declared as national park or wildlife sanctuary under this in situ conservation, the local people lose their right. And sometimes the animals, protected reserve animals, escape from their territory and raid on crops. Such things will be there. Uh, then even people will also see that when there is a more number of animals in a protected area, people will also start hunting, poaching for food, sports, research, for marketing, various reasons. So there's the uh, even another thing is illegal harvesting of timber, other plant products are banned. Even hunting is also difficult for them. Even tourists, all those problems will be there. That is in situ conservation. Then another one is the ex situ conservation. This is conserving an endangered species by the activities undertaken outside its normal environment. Ex situ, not within their area. It is transported somewhere uh, outside the natural environment in captivity that has been conserved. That is what you call ex situ conservation. For example, rare breed center. There are some rare organisms. They are taken from their original place to laboratories or zoos where they are reared. Or all zoological gardens or zoos, wildlife parks, sperm parks, cells in tissue culture, frozen embryos, crop in cultivation, botanical gardens, seed banks. These are the example for ex situ. Here, they are not protected in their habitat, but they are shifted somewhere else. So this has both advantages as disadvantages. Advantages, it prevents the immediate extinction of the endangered species who are in very less number. They can be taken in better care, can so that they can increase the population size very quickly. And after once their population increases, again the people can think about reintroducing them to their original areas. Even this is done only in the laboratories or in juice. You can filter out if at all any genetic defects are there, poor genes are there, so you can make them strong. And it gives a lot of opportunity for research also. Even you can store their gametes, sperms and egg for future use of in vitro fertilization. This is the advantage. There are certain disadvantages. Sometimes many or few organisms fail to breed in the captivity. Only in the natural environment they breed, not in the captivity. And lack of sufficient space, uh, either in the zoo or other things, they cannot get their natural environment. They will be uh, over densely populated also. Even the reintroduction to their native habitat afterwards, all times, every time there is no guarantee that they will succeed. Many times even they fail also. But one thing, it is possible to rebuild the biodiversity through this reintroduction in the habitats. Uh, there are many examples: conifer clearance, wildlife habitat recovery, grazing land revision to traditional meadow grasslands. So these are some of the Yellowstone National Park in US. And one more thing in the sperm banks nowadays, modern techniques. That's also part of ex situ conservation. Modern techniques make freezing of the genetic material in sperm and eggs possible. Uh, in Britain, it is going on a war footing. About hundreds of Britain's native breeds of farm animals to protect them from the extinction. The sperms and uh, eggs are kept in sperm banks. So these are even in the plants also you can use this one. Uh, Very interesting. Most plants naturally have a dormant stage seeds. So seed banks, what we call, large number of seeds can be collected from the wild without disturbing the ecosystem and damaging the wild population and can be stored for a number of years. So the seeds can be stored and they can be germinated in protected surroundings. Um, Even establishment of this botanical garden where uh, they can increase the individual number quickly because you can provide all the conditions, uh, resources required for them. So these are any collection of wild seed will cause some disturbance, but still then uh, that become the gene bank. But collected sample may not hold a representative selection of genetic diversity, but each seed contains some amount of diversity. And sometimes here also problems are there. Seeds collected from same species from another area, from one area to another area, there may be a genetic difference and may not succeed in different areas. All those things. Even there is a fear. Even if you store the seeds for a length of time, many seeds may not germinate. Then even, but certainly it's an effort to protect them. Seed banks, what we call. Food building material from rural community, disease resistant crops we can introduce in the agriculture. Uh, in Norway, set up by the Global Crop Diversity Trust in 2008, funded by Norway, across the globe, they collect all the seeds and cold storage vault created in a rock beneath the Arctic permafrost, which can store up to 3 million seeds in the seed bank availability. So these are some of the uh, what you call ex situ and in situ methods. ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಹಲೋ ಹಲೋ ಏನು was it?
Hello, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then I will wind up now because I have one more class. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. So then I will wind up now. Okay.